Oh. Can we see the word on the fridge? The word on the fridge is quite short today. It's also not finished. I've just realised that. Not my best move. Where's the last letter gone? Should we fix that right here at the beginning, live as we're doing this? I've just got to find the final letter. That's not ideal at all. No sort of comfort security blanket knowing it's there, but I seem to run out of the last letter. That's not good at all, is it? That's not helpful in the slightest. Not helpful in the slightest. If you're joining early, because we haven't started yet, for those of you new, hi. This is normally where we talk about the word on the fridge, but I've actually forgotten to finish it because I'm an idiot, apparently. Hang on a second. Let's see if we can't find something here. All of these letters on this fridge. And I can't find the last letter of the word of the week for the fridge. This is not a good start, everybody. Not very auspicious in the slightest. I think we're going to have to, in true Scrabble tradition, we're going to have to use the blank space tile and fill in the gap. Oh dear. My apologies, everybody. My apologies there. Let's get rocking and rolling, though. We'll just give everybody another moment or two to get in. And then what we'll do, let's just make sure that we've got this all shared out in all the relevant places on here. Where has it gone? Just quickly going to find the last bit. Just going to share this out very, very quickly, and then we'll get properly rocking and rolling on there. Talk amongst yourselves for a very, very brief moment. Let's get that shared out. Like I said, just another moment or two for people to get logged in. And the like. And then we will get rocking and rolling for real. Yeah, you can't see it now because I've had to use the spare space character from the Scrabble set. But the word on the fridge is Shep. S-H-E-P. And you'll probably guess why in a minute. So hopefully that'll work for everybody. There we go. That all appears to have gone to all of those places. Right. In which case, we've got a bit of time. It's time to get rocking and rolling. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. And welcome. Oh, and all beyond the binary, in fact. I forgot to even add that bit in. But it's Wednesday night, it's 8 p.m. And welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through absolutely everything and anything we can think to chat about with regards to the National Ice Hockey League. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But we, of course, have a look at everything. And we'll certainly, if nothing else, go through all the results and all the fixtures in the National Division, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. I hope you're all doing really, really well this Wednesday evening. It is cold. It's actually feeling like winter now. December starts tomorrow. We're officially in Advent, so you can all talk about Christmas. And there's a few bits and pieces we do need to that we definitely do need to chat about. However, before we kick off with the show too hard and fast, as we're live here on YouTube now, where we sort of reside, a few bits of housekeeping before we go too far. Of course, you've got the wonderful option of, I believe, no, it's that way. You should have the chat window function. Questions, comments, anything anybody wants to kind of throw in. We do, of course, take questions ahead of the show, and by all means do. We've got one that we're actually going to talk about in a moment or two here that somebody has actually DM'd over on Twitter. But if you want to use the chat function, please do use it. Questions and comments and things, stick bits and pieces in. This isn't a monologue; it's a discussion. We've got quite a good little community going here, so the more contributions, the better the conversation, and the better it is. And also, if you're using that and you are watching live, please do just quickly hop onto your social media of choice and share out the stream, because the more people that come in, the more eyes we can kind of get on stuff that's happening here, and of course on NIHL hockey, because as I've said it before, I do feel a little bit that the EIHL is a bit oversaturated with stuff focusing on it, and there's not enough eyes on the NIHL despite all the good stuff that it entails. So do make sure to share stuff out. Let's get as many people watching as we possibly can do. The other thing, of course, the main focus, and there's a new piece up there right now, battlesonthewall.wordpress.com. That is my website where I have done all of my writing. I've been writing about the basis of Bison for the last 11 years. Player comings, player goings, match night reports, and of course the latest one from the weekend is there. Published about 40 minutes or so ago over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com from the Bison's home defeat on Saturday against the Hull Seahawks, and things are starting to kind of feel a little bit grim in bases. Like, it felt bad before, they're starting to feel very, very bad, very, very bad now. But when we get into sort of more of a discussion about the fixtures from the weekend, we'll get into that in greater detail. But there's a bunch of stuff as well as our hockey story series, the old podcast, our tabletop game you can download, Dice Hockey, all of that is there. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Now, of course, we streamed last Wednesday, and since then there has been some major movement within the National Ice Hockey League, National Division now, and unfortunately, no Tom Barry. It's not you leaving Peterborough. Interesting though that move is, but of course, it was the news that came out of Bracknell. Slough. I can't. It's just a habit. The Bees are Bracknell. I don't care if they play in Slough. They're the Bracknell Bees, and my head will never change that. But the news out of the Bees that not only has Dominic Gabai been banned for 10 games for a tier 2 offence for checking to the head the weekend previous, he then got a bit of a job upgrade. Doug Shepherd resigning his place as head coach of the Bees. He retains the title of general manager and retains the title of director of hockey operations. He is one of the directors who owns the Bees currently. There are 4 of them listed on Company's House. But Shep stepping away from the bench following a bad run of results. This in and of itself was an odd timed moment for this to kind of happen. And the Bees, since Shepherd sort of went across when they were still at Bracknell, he had a smaller budget for him to work with than he had at Basingstoke. Results were sometimes very, very hard to come by. We then end up in the pandemic, and the ice rink at Bracknell, the Hive, closed, gone. It's now been knocked down. It's no longer there, and all of that great British hockey history is now gone to dust forever. And the Bees, as an organisation, end up moving to Slough. And we know that it is hard to re-establish yourself. Aside from the fact for the Bees, you've got one of your biggest local rivals of all time in Slough, in the Jets, based in that rink. The Bees move in and they do their best to kind of keep things up. But again, it's a smaller budget side. Lots going on, trying to re-establish themselves in a new town after years and years and years of being associated with another place. And it's been tough for the Bees this year. They've been short-benched. They'd already made some roster moves. Dan Willer-Evans stepping away from hockey, Dan Bradley coming in, and there's been a little bit of movement, but they had been the little engine that could. Gabai had been scoring well for them. The introduction into British hockey of Brendan Walcombe had been really significant for the Bees. The continued improvement and development of Juha Lindgren, as well as some of these other guys in this very short rostered side, stepping up really well. Alan Lack, Will Stead, Harvey Stead doing a great job with the back captain, Stuart Mogg trying to provide that solid presence, but they were lurching backwards and forwards between eking out wins and then getting absolutely thumped from time to time. The issue there, and Shepherd resigning his position as coach just felt a bit strange. He's so heavily invested in the roster. Why in the middle of the season step away? There is discussion as to why that has happened. There's talk that as directors, the Bees decided that they needed to kind of change direction, and maybe things needed to freshen up. Doug could guide the direction more from above rather than just doing the same things on the ice the entire time. And they announced that assistant coach Dominic Gabai was now the head coach. The problem being that Gabai is now suspended for 10 games, and if you are suspended whilst a player coach, not only do you not play, you cannot coach. So Gabai is named head coach of a team that he can't now coach on the bench, which is a bit of a problem for the Bees. Unsure 100% as to how they're rectifying this at the moment. I venture somebody like maybe Bill Webb will step in onto the bench. I don't know whether Shep's still just guesting there until something happens. Joe Scott's there in the chat, of course, commentator, and we're talking about you in a minute, Joe, because we do need to mention about you. Will be the fact that Dominic Gabai will return on the 7th of January, so he misses Christmas altogether. Also absolutely deserved a 10-game ban. Well, indeed, I was told it was, and from what I've seen of this hit, it is not particularly good. Bill Webb is the level 2 in charge. I did venture it will be. Bill Webb, of course, father of Ryan Webb, who's been a very underrated piece of any quality stuff that's kind of come through the bees in the last couple of years. But either way, that happened. The stranger thing is that reportedly some of the things I'm hearing is that the decision for Shepherd to move upstairs was announced on the Tuesday, and then on the Wednesday they found out about the goodbye, which scuppered all of their plans all in one go, which is fun. But having been given that by a couple of sources, I'm quite happy to talk about that. So there we are. Big changes for the bees, and not the worst of weekends. In the end, some actually, a bit of sometimes you change, like in football, you see that change of coach and you get a bit of a rebound factor and something happens. We, of course, will talk about that a little bit later on when we get properly into the fixtures. But I am going to read very, very quickly. We'll get into this. Normally we do it a bit later on, but I had a really interesting message come through. And it's a question I kind of like to pose to you guys as well watching. So do make sure to make use of the chat function. But I'll read this out because it's from Richie Welton. Richie is a Telford Tigers fan. He has he's watched he watches the show for a while. I don't know whether he's in chat at the moment, but I'll read out this question, sort of a bit that he mentioned in here, and I'll read it in full because even though it's a little bit lengthy, I'm really interested to hear what people think. Question for the live chat: what's your view on the way some teams seem to be operating this season, with most teams implementing price hikes over the last few seasons? For myself, this has been an increase of around £300 for our family season ticket, taking it now to over £1,000 a season for our seats alone. Although I understand not the same amount of games. It's true, there has been an increase, of course. I could get a season ticket at some Premiership football teams for that. Then factor in individual player sponsorship, multiple own and loans throughout the year, 50-50, chuck-a-puck, plus other secondary spending on merchandise, etc. For me, this season, although not all teams, it feels like too many teams are going through the motions and consistently playing short bench or bodging together a roster just to fulfill a fixture, rather than putting a product on the ice that the paying punters deserve. Nothing to do with winning or losing, but I don't like watching hockey where a short bench team is gassed come the final period, or some random players are in one week and gone the next, or the travelling team turn up with 12 players, and for some reason we have to be grateful that they turned up at all while handing over our money. I think the people running these clubs have a duty to supply a certain level of product, and I think at the moment a lot are falling short of the price they have slapped on it. A massive thanks to Richie for sending that in, because it's quite an interesting statement, I think, to put out, and it is. And, not having spoken to Richie very, very briefly, clearly a guy who really, really loves the sport and has put a lot of money and time into the sport. I think the fact that we have an 11-team league at the moment has potentially caused a bit of an issue. And there is this diluting a little bit of the player pool that we've seen this year, particularly adding a new team in the south and a new team in the north. It would be interesting if maybe, and it's not to denigrate Hull, but I'll pick on them as an example. If Hull hadn't come into the league and another team had come in the south, I don't know, a team decided to lose their marbles and play out of the pavilions at Plymouth, for example, like that pool in the south would have drastically impacted impacted Swindon, impacted Bristol, impacted Basingstoke, impacted the Bees, would have even potentially impacted Romford as well, albeit they are much further east. And actually, I think what we're seeing is that the national division, where it's still ultimately quite a young league, you think with the pandemic, this is only season 3 post this era where we had EPL sides built for the EPL suddenly finding themselves in NIHL Division 1 that wasn't necessarily prepared for it. And I think what people have kind of expected is that, almost like a rubber man, British hockey would rebound. And actually, it hasn't really done that yet. The pandemic as well has also massively changed not just the world, not just our economy, and there's other knock-on effects of things, like poor governmental policy, like Brexit, which has affected ice hockey in a secondary way. But also the idea that a lot of people, from a playing perspective, from the pandemic, life changed for everybody, and actually there was for a lot of us, we wanted to get back to the things that we loved, and we're biased sitting here in a hockey context because the one place we all wanted to be was in an ice rink. We all wanted to go watch our sport. But actually, some people have walked away. Players have walked away. Coaches have walked away. People who did this for a long time reevaluated their position in the world. And the pandemic was a fire break for a lot of people in a literal sense. They were on it. Maybe they felt that they were just doing something for the sake of doing it because they didn't know anything else, and they changed and moved away. The other issue that I think we have at the moment, and we can't. So aside from the fact that pool of players is smaller, and coaches are loath to do the brave thing and bring in kids and just let them fill those spots. You think of a team like the Bees. The Bees have literally been picked up and moved and chucked across. And ultimately, what have they got there? It's not like they can just immediately turn up and just pilfer the Slough junior system. That's not going to work. And relationships between the Bees and the Jets as organisations have already been problematic. And my understanding is both teams are working on repairing that a little bit more. However, if there's only so many people there and the people in charge are only prepared to do X amount and they want to present a product on the ice of a set quality, are you going to do that by chucking in a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds who may not be ready for this? Is this about taking a step backward, 2 steps back to maybe make 3 steps forward in a later period? Because actually giving those younger players time now in 2022, maybe come 2023, 24 or 24, 25, we actually have a much harder thing there of whatever, of a better core of British players and stuff. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff there. It's hard to know what the value there, what the value is kind of being expected. And I think it's a strange one of, it's hard to know. And I think it's quite hard to put my finger on sometimes where the level is of the national division. Now, a lot of people say to me that it's not as good as the old EPL, and I think that's probably fair. But when your entire structure you've had for the better part of a decade and a half collapses, is it expected to turn around inside a year, 2 years? I think, we're effectively on year 3, and things are not going to be as they were, and they're going to be better in the future. But I think there's a bunch of things that it will take from team owners and coaches as well to kind of be brave and fight, those gaps that can't be filled. Rather, you can't just drag in an entire under-18s team to fill in gaps, because under-18s have got games. But maybe coaches and clubs need to be a bit braver in terms of filling out those rosters. In terms of the value for money element, that's a personal choice. And I understand why people would worry, would wonder about it in terms of putting so much money in. And you think of, I read that list there for Richard. I know from a personal perspective, I don't commit that level of money because I can't. Like, some people can, and that's great. And if you do, I'm sure your club is very, very thankful for your support. And if that's how you want to pay back to the thing that gives you joy, knock yourself out. But it's quite a hard thing to do. And I think the one thing that clubs are going to have to be better and savvier with is 2 things. Is one, they need to kind of expand the methods of money coming in. And, whether it's live streaming at a more reasonable price, or whether it's more diverse range of sponsorship options, or it's, just, looking for more smaller companies rather than aiming, having like 6 or 7 companies that give you £1,000, maybe having 14 companies who give you, £300-400 instead, kind of thing, and looking at it that way. But it is, in this period in our country where it's costing a lot of money to exist, that outlay for what is effectively our spare time, as important as it is to us, that's going to be, it's hard. We can't expect, you can't tell people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps if you don't give them boots with straps to pull. It'll be cyclical because people can't afford to put money into the product. How can the product improve without investment? And that'll be very, very problematic. And I'm not saying you need to spend every last penny on ice hockey, because Lord knows I don't, because I can't. And I'm not saying people, need to put themselves into financial trouble. You definitely shouldn't. You should only ever spend on ice hockey what you can afford. And also, you shouldn't feel obligated to put money into buying things like the 50-50 and truck a puck or whatever if you don't want to. I personally don't do the 50-50 in basic stakes because for me that's gambling, and I don't gamble for money. So I don't buy 50-50 tickets, and I don't buy truck a duck because that's for the kids and I want the kids to have fun. I'm not going to steal a spot from a kid. And also, I'm quite busy on match nights now, as you know. So it's really hard, I think, at the moment. I think we're kind of, until as a country we kind of shuffle past where we are economically and in terms of play, getting past some of those bits and pieces. I think it's going to be much, much harder to get past that. Tom Barry's apparently joined Widnes, which is really annoying because basically desperately needed somebody in terms of defence, and that's more on that in the piece. I will have to update that in a moment, and I will do so. Hey ho, such is life. The Bison desperately need an extra defenseman. They don't have anybody. Oh well. Anyway. Questions, comments. What do we think? What do we feel on this? Is the NIHL offering value for money where you are? I mentioned this will probably be a very different answer to the question if you're in Milton Keynes compared to whether you're in Hull right now. Albeit, and I've written about it a little bit in the piece from having the fact that the basis I played Hull at the weekend. Really good to get a couple of minutes of Matty Davies's time. Really good to have a chat to him, and I've mentioned it in the piece, but to kind of sort of take it sideways of that, very, very surreal moment, of course, because we talked about a lot about Hull coming into existence here on the stream back earlier in the year. One of those sort of stories that I put out into the world. So to actually kind of, obviously Hull have been a thing for a while now. It's been, they've played quite a few games at this point, but to actually be able to kind of see it with my own eyes, in front of me was quite surreal. And Matty was good enough to kind of sort of have a chat to me. We sort of chatted about how things are going, how things are. Massive amount of, I had a massive amount of respect for him before. I have have a fair amount of respect for him, especially afterwards. Obviously not a great scoreline, but we have scorelines and we have game sheets. It was obviously mentioned last week, but Joe Scott's NIHL Stats, it has become official. NIHLstats.wordpress.com, Joe's site. And the man has done it. In 10 days, he has updated everything. The stats are up to date. And of course, we use NIHL Stats frequently here at the What's Current stream to kind of go through the scorelines and bits and pieces. Joe's resource is fantastic, and he's made the point that when Sportal properly comes into being, effectively the site will almost be redundant because everything will go through that. However, until that point, we've got Joe and we've got Joe's website, and of course, now everything's up to date. So obviously now he's got us up to where we are. It's going to be much easier for Joe to kind of keep things updated. But also, what I'm hoping. And Joe, one thing Joe's generally very, very good at is pulling out those little extra weird stats. For example, for me, I'm always interested as to what goalie is top of the scoring charts because that always keeps me interested. Of course, Reddy Marr with his one goal, but is he top of the scorers so far? I don't think he is. So we will see what happens with that one. Either way, let's go and have a quick look at what happened in the National Division at the weekend. Basingstoke losing 5-4 at home to Hull. A late power play goal from James Archer, bringing back the days of the Manchester Phoenix was Jimmy as he dropped to one knee for the one-timer past Jordan Lauder. The Bison calling a timeout, swapping out keepers. I'm not going to go too hard and fast into my thoughts. That's all over on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. That went out later today. For those bits and pieces, so definitely go and have a read of that. But the Bison have got to do something. It's too much of a rut now. One win, they haven't won at home since the beginning of October. Something has to shift, and they need to start being a bit more creative with what they're doing. Otherwise, Battle of the Dogs from Saturday evening, and the Sheffield Steel Dogs skating out of Bristol with a 3-2 shootout win. Alex Graham there with the important shot past Will Curley. There's a question actually, I think, because we've probably all had the We've all had the chance now to see Bristol and Hull, I think, in front of our own eyes. What do we think of Curlin as a netminder? Lot was made about him not getting too much ice time in Nottingham this year. He's come down, signed this 2-way with Cardiff, and he's gotten pretty much all of the minutes, bar a couple last weekend that were given to Ethan Frayne. Tyler Perry is now back, of course, and you think he's going to give Curlin a bit of a rest at some point. But what do we think of Curlin as a netminder? Is he a starter? Is he starting quality in the National Division? I think he is, but I think he's having to kind of settle a bit more, and this Bristol side is still finding its feet a little bit. Is Ashley Tate under increasing pressure in Basingstoke? Yes, because the team are not playing very, very well. And if it starts affecting the bottom line, Planet Ice will not hesitate to move on that. I don't think. Such is life. Go Seahawks. Hull were unlucky on Leeds versus Leeds on Sunday. Can you unluckily lose 6-1, Niall? I think is probably my question there. They won in Basingstoke on the Saturday evening, and you know what? Pretty good value for the win. I think I would have, as a Bison fan, I was frustrated given the effort that we didn't get a point out of it. But I can't argue with Hull winning because the Bison just absolutely whiplashed from being great at moments to just being absolutely awful. The third Seahawks goal where I think it's Norcliffe and Mitchell skate into each other in the high slot, and it's just like it's just not good hockey at the. It's just not good hockey at the moment. I've just also realised that I've been doing this entire thing without my notes open, which is very impressive for me. I've just been completely free texting this entire thing at the moment. There we go. That's better. But yeah, a couple of goals from Graham as well as the shootout winner. Goals for the Pitbulls. First national division goal, as far as I'm aware, for Elliot Lewis for the Pitbulls, and Ed Bradley with the other goal there. Over in Slough, obviously the first game of what is technically the Dominic Gabai era, but isn't the Dominic Gabai era because he's not there. Saw the Bees unfortunately go down in Gabai's first game as head coach. They lose 4-3 to the Peterborough Phantoms. Dan Rose with a couple, and Will Stead with the other goal for the Bees. Luke Johnson, Duncan Spears, Austin Mitchell King with 2 gets Peterborough over the line in that one. Swindon and taking on Telford, and Telford another team. Actually, Swindon and Telford very, very similar. This so far this season, you think a lot of potential at the start of the year, but they just don't seem to be able to get that bit of consistency that they really, really need. Certainly that consistency is what put Telford over the line for the first 2 years of the National Division. They would just grind teams down and grind it out, but injuries have played a factor for Telford certainly this year, and bad form has been a factor for the Wildcats. But the Wildcats get the win, 5-2 at home, very important win for them, and they have they've managed to do really well against some really top end sides, and then just been shaky all over the shop. Vladimir Luka with both goals for the Tigers, goals for the Cats coming from Balint Pokodzi, Tomasz Malazinski, Sam Bullis, Russ Cowley, and then a second of the night from Balint Pokodzi to seal that 5-2 win. And then there was one of the other bits of play. I mean, we mentioned about Tom Barry, who now is apparently a witness, which I totally missed, so my apologies to the Wild for that one. But the other bit of play movement was Alex Roberts. Alex Roberts has landed with the Raiders. He has gone over to Essex, and his first game was on Saturday evening against Leeds. It didn't go well. Leeds 8, Raiders 0. And you've signed a new import who you want to score goals for you. Not good. Two from Zach Brooks, Matt Hayward, Kieran Brown, Adam Barnes. 2 from Kieran Brown, and also 2 goals from Grant Cooper and Tate Shudger. So at least one of the Shudders has to get on the score sheet. I believe it is legally mandated for Leeds for that to happen. But an absolute slapping for the Raiders, who had a pretty decent run of form, but it leads, to the point where Gomicic isn't even able to make an impact. Raiders never in the game at least, didn't really notice Roberts. Agree with the man of the match of the night, Sam Gospel, the shutout. 23 shots for the shutout for Gospel as well, so not made to work overly hard. Ethan James has conceded 11 goals in 2 periods in the last 2 Saturdays, but his defence have got to do more for him. Ethan James has not magically forgotten how to be a netminder. His D have got to wake up and they have got to help him out. Is probably the thing to say there. So that heads us into last Sunday, of course. Basingstoke off, so I couldn't be any more disappointed than I already was. The night. Romford then, of course, had a disappointing night against Leeds on the Saturday. They went home on the Sunday, and things did not get better. It ended up being a 4-point weekend for Swindon as they win 7-3 away at Sapphire Ice and Leisure. Jake Sylvester, Brandon Aliff, and Ashley Jackson with the goals for the Raiders. Goals for the Cats coming from Reed Sayers, 2 from Colby Tower, Tomasz Malazinski, and Aaron Nell, with giving them the 6-2 advantage. Nell with the literal deaf knell, as it were, to get Swindon the 7-3 win. What's that in the chat? Raiders were nullified this weekend. Oh, yes, Jamie. Yes. As a father, that level of pun is thoroughly appreciated here. Then, of course, we did mention about Hull. They had a really good Saturday night. Didn't go quite as well on Sunday. They lose 6-1 at home to the Knights, but they were leading at the 20-minute mark thanks to a goal from Nathan Salem, who scored an absolute cracker of a goal on Saturday evening as well. Just looking for the Knights. Adam Barnes with 2. Grant Cooper making it 3-1. Cooper's 50th point of the campaign on that goal. Kieran Brown making it 4-1. Cooper then which Cooper got an assist. And Cooper then getting another goal. He now has 52 points. I make it on the season. Matt Hayward with the final goal there for the 6-1. I've pressed the wrong button and just let back to the top of my notes there. Peterborough. Again, keeping up the pressure on Leeds. Leeds, of course, we know far and away at the top of the table, but Peterborough still getting those points, still managing to kind of keep pace with what's going on up in Leeds. They managed to fight off, even fighting off a 6-4 man advantage at the end of the game. They beat Bristol by 4-3. Goals for the Pitbulls from Callie Robertson, Morgan Clark Pizzo. I've also just missed who has scored the other one. Jay Warren there. The Pitbulls 2-0 up in this game and losing 4-3 to be Clark Pizzo, Robertson, and Warren for the Pitbulls. Ralph Sesenis, Duncan Spears, Glenn Billing, and Alish Padalek with the goals for the Phantoms in that one. Then, of course, the other big title challenger, the MK Lightning. 3 wins from 3 the weekend before, just the one game this weekend, and they pull it out of the fire as well. They too win by 4-3, winning away at Sheffield against the Steel Dogs. David Sarkanis, Sam Talbot, Tim Wallace, and Sean Norris with the goals for the Lightning. Goals for the Steel Dogs coming from Alex Graham, James Spur. I'm just trying to see who scored the other goal. John Kirk with the third goal there for the Steel Dogs. So the Steel Dogs again a little bit shaky, but they've been pressing on. They've sort of held on to 4th spot pretty handily so far in this one. And then there was a bit more fun and games in the Bees. Well, the Bees, new coach, new everything. And they managed to pull out a win here away in Telford. It's away in Telford, 5-4. The final score in that one. Goals for the Bees coming from Wilstead, Brendan Walkham with 2. Just trying to see who got there on there. Lewis English getting a goal, so another young prospect who's come up from Slough, and Ryan Webb with the game-winning goal on the power play. Goals for the Tigers coming from Charlie Webb, Vladimir Luka, Sam Watkins, and another one from Silverthorne. Now Silverthorne thrown out for a match penalty for a check to the head, apparently as well on Adam Goss. Remains to be seen what level's worth of suspension that Silverthorne gets. Silverthorne 10 games. I mean, it will depend on the hit, but you think hitting the netminder is not going to be looked upon very, with much leniency. If that is what has happened, you'd think he'd be looking down the barrel of 10 games there as well. It remains to be seen, obviously, what happens out of that, but definitely not what Telford need, given the fact that they're D-men short and a bunch of other bits and pieces a bunch of other bits and pieces as well. We of course know, like I say, we know that we've got our semi-finals of the cup already set. The last few games from there, of course, are still going on. So we'll just look at the league table for the National Division at the moment. And oh my, what a surprise. Leeds are still top. 38 points from 20 games for the Knights after their successful 4-point weekend. But Peterborough still keeping up the pace. They have 36 points, but they have played a game more. Milton Keynes at 36 from 21 for the Phantoms, 35 from 21 for the MK Lightning, followed in fourth by Sheffield now, who are 8 points back of third place. They have 27 from 20. Swindon 23 from 20. Telford 22 from 23. Raiders 19 from 20. Basingstoke, they're still holding on to 8th spot at the moment. They have 13 from 20. Bristol 13 from 21, sitting 9th. The Bees have 12 from 22. So that last player spot now getting very, very dicey at the moment. Hull, of course, with their win, they're now up to 3 wins. They have 6 points from their 22 games. Peterborough need to win on Saturday to guarantee second place in the second leg at home. Raiders, you'd think you'd put, if you were a betting man, which as we've established here, I am not, we'd be putting that money more towards Peterborough on that one. But although, given the fact that it's obviously short form and it's a couple of games, I don't think out of those top 3, or even the fact if you chuck Sheffield into that, I don't think you can put any team out of winning this. Leeds are the heavy favourites. Obviously they are. But MK have beaten them. I think Peterborough can find a way to beat them. They can grit it out. And the Sheffield, nobody bets it. You shouldn't bet against the Steel Dogs. We saw what happened in the playoffs. Definitely can't bet against the Steel Dogs in any situation. But Peterborough, I think, given the fact that it's more than likely going to be Leeds, Sheffield, Peterborough, MK, Peterborough will desperately want to have that second leg at home, because the one thing especially if you can nick a result in MK and force the Lightning to have to come into Peterborough, which is not as nice a rink, and to try and get a result is going to be hard. That is going to be a real test. And ultimately, like we said, there's a lot of pressure on MK this year. It feels like to get some silverware. So we will what remains to kind of be seen there. That last player spot now is obviously heating up. Basingstoke on 13 points, Bristol on 13 points, Bees on 12. Hull, of course, with the potential to really claw their way back into this one. I think the big thing here in terms of that battle for 8th spot, the Bison have scored 59 goals. Bristol have scored 65. The Bees have scored 75 goals. They've scored nearly, 10 more goals than Bristol. Was that 16 more than Basingstoke? The goals are getting scored by the Bees. The issue is that there are only 2 teams who have conceded more than 100 goals, and the Bees are one of them. Such is life. Playoffs will do towards the end, Jamie. We're going to go through the results first, and then we'll chat about playoffs and stuff before we look at the fixtures. Either way, let's have a quick. We've done the National Division, so let's quickly as well bash on through the other leagues, and let's head to Division 1 in the north, because there were a couple of important games. In certainly one big game that has massively impacted the title race. It was only the one game on Saturday in North 1, and it was not close in any way, shape, or form. We wondered whether the Scimitars could cause a shock. It was certainly a shock on Saturday evening, and that's because the Scimitars lost at home 16-1 to the Solway Sharks. That Sharks team are just ridiculous at this level, and they should be in the National Division, and we should let them in 5 minutes ago. It's just gotten silly now. We then headed into Sunday. The Sharks then getting another 4-point weekend for them. A solid 8-1 win away in Solihull against the Barons. A good win as well then on Sunday. For Widnes, they have got a 5-2 win over Billingham. Billingham, of course, had a really good start to the year. Widnes wanting to claw their way into the race for 3rd spot as well. But the big result comes out of Blackburn, and the Whitley Warriors lose in a shootout to the Hawks. The Hawks have not had the best of years so far. Results have been very, very hard to come by, but a massive, massive win for them. We saw Billingham knock off Solway earlier in the year. Blackburn knocking off Whitley is almost, if nothing else, an even bigger shock, all things considered, in my personal opinion there. We will then very quickly just smash our way through the tables. Just looking at the Cup in the north, because the Cup in the north operates in a very similar way to the very similar-ish way to kind of the national Divisions 1. Solway, Whitley, Billingham, and Widnes are the top 4 there, followed by Solihull, Nottingham, Blackburn. Deeside, of course, have still only played 6 games, and Scimitars are at the bottom there. But it follows a very similar tale to what is there in the league table. And that loss for Whitley this weekend could prove costly. The top 3 teams have all played 15 games. Solway have 27 points from theirs. Whitley, with their loss, have 25, and Billingham have 20. So they're still not out of it, but Billingham are going to need to get some results against Solway and against Whitley. They're going to need them to slip up elsewhere as well for them to do work there. Widnes, though, with their win over Billingham, they've clawed themselves back towards things. They have 16 points from 13 games. That would bring them level on points with the Stars. Solihull in 5th. They have 13 from 12. Blackburn up to 6th now with their win against Whitley. They have 10 from 14. Nottingham 8 from 14. Deeside still on their paws as the rink gets finished. They have 2 from 6. The Scimitars now 1 point from 14 games. They have scored 26 goals and conceded 90 in 14 games in the league. Is Dom Osmond the head coach in Blackburn? Yes, he is. I saw Emil Svek was on the bench of the Bison game. Is that allowed? My understanding is technically no. I don't think anybody's going to argue it because Svek had zero impact on anything. He wasn't dressed. He was standing there in a tracksuit and didn't really participate in anything. I would be very, very surprised if anybody has bothered to mention anything about it, to be perfectly honest, because it didn't impact the game. He wasn't dressed, so there's no game sheet infraction. He technically should not have been in the bench area, but what do you do? And it didn't impact the game. Having the guy there didn't impact anything. So I don't know really what to kind of say on that one. For me, it's a non-entity of a thing. It feels like from a Bison perspective, I'm not asking them to overturn the result as a result of that. That would just be silly. Heading into South 1 then, and Saturday, one game that was a South Cup only game for Slough. They defeated Romford in Romford by 5-1. We'll have a look at how that impacts the cup table momentarily. But the other game, if you liked goals, and Milton Keynes was the place to be on Saturday evening. Final score from the Thunderdome: MK Thunder 6, Chelmsford 11. A 17-goal game, not one for the defensive purists by the look of it there. That was a league-only encounter for MK and Chelmsford as well. Into Sunday then, all purely league action there. And 11 goals on Saturday evening. They weren't as fortunate on Sunday. Chelmsford lose 4-2 at home to the Streatham Redhawks. Of course, with the cup now gone, Streatham will be laser-focused in on that league title and making a point there. However, 11 goals were scored on Sunday by one team, and it was Invicta. MK conceding 11 goals in back-to-back nights as they lose 11-4 to the Dynamos in Gillingham on Sunday. Slough and Oxford only 2-1, the final score there. The Jets eking out that victory there against the City Stars in the league. We'll have then a quick look as to what that all means there. But boy, not a fun weekend for the MK Thunder, conceding a lot of goals there, very, very heavily. As we've seen then, so the South Cup, teams have played all their respective games. My understanding is it's 2 games, home and away against everybody else. Streatham then bottom of the group due to their forfeited games. Chelmsford and Invicta go through from Group A. Chelmsford as the number 1 seed, Invicta as the number 2 seed. Oxford, the other team that misses out from Group A. In Group B, then, it was close, but no cigar really. Solent and Slough have already qualified. That win over the Junior Raiders means that Slough have qualified as an absolute minimum. The maximum number of points MK could get is 4 from their 1 remaining game. Slough already have 6 points from their 4 games played. In the league table itself, it's no huge surprise who's back on top. It's Streatham. They have clawed their way back to the top of the table, given their start in the cup, meaning they played fewer league fixtures, but they are level on points with the Solent Devils, and the Devils have beaten Streatham already this year. Streatham, though, 16 from 9, Solent 16 from 10. Slough then in third, they have 14 from 11, followed by Chelmsford, who have 10 in 10. Invicta 8 from 11, Romford 7 from 6. Oxford 4 from 9. MK still at the bottom of the table. They have 3 points from their 8 games. Thunder only had 2 lines on Sunday in Gillingham. Yeah, I mean, you can understand, and I appreciate for some of the teams in Division 1 and Division 2 getting rosters together to go and play away games that are a bit of a drive is going to be tough. But yeah, 22 goals conceded in 2 games is pretty terrifying statistics for the netminders to have a look at. We head in then into North 2. A much more fuller weekend, actually, in North 2 than we've seen in some time. A couple of games from Saturday. And of course, the big discussion, as we always have in North 2, is Telford and Hull. Those two teams looking like the real title challengers as they were last year. Playing as they did back-to-back in Sheffield on Saturday. Hull were away at the Sutton Sting. They win 6-1. Followed after that, and then the following face-off was the Sheffield Titans hosting the Telford Tigers. Tigers win 6-2, so both title challengers keeping up the good form that they needed. The other game from Saturday in North 2 saw the Coventry NHL Blaze score a 5-3 win over the Nottingham Lions. There was only one game in North 2 on Sunday, and Sutton, well, it wasn't a completely nullified weekend for them. They win 4-2 against the Bradford Bulldogs in a combined league and cup encounter. So we'll have a quick smash through the table. Through the tables for the North, and we have, as far as I'm aware, we do indeed have our qualifiers for the semi-finals for the cup. There, Telford will take on Altrincham. Hull will take on Sutton. Given the fact that we have now completed all of the, there's still one game left in Group B of the Cup for everybody, but there will be no change of position. Hull have 10 points. They are 5 from 5 in the Cup, and Altrincham, the maximum they can get is 8. Sheffield can't qualify because they don't have the qualifier over Altrincham, and so that settles that. In terms of the league table in North 2, well, there's that big disparity, of course, in games played that would see everything level, but those two teams are going to need to keep winning. Telford sit top at the moment. They have 26 points from 14 games. Hull 20 from 11, so 3 games in hand, and still with the opportunity to draw level on points. Tiebreaker between these two is going to be massive. There's then a 6-point drop down. Altrincham are in third. They have 14 from 12. Sutton have 14 from 14 following their win over Bradford at the weekend. Fifth place is the Sheffield Titans. They have 11 points from 13 games. Coventry, 9 from 13. The Nottingham Lions, 7 from 12. And Bradford at the bottom of the table still. They have 6 points from their 11 games following their defeat on Sunday. Which then leads us into South 2. We'll just get to Saturday. There is this pressing button. Not too many games in South 2, certainly on Saturday, but a few of the big names in action. And Haringey and Streatham started the season relatively well in South 2, but it is a big win at Ali Pally for the Huskies. 5-1. Haringey defeats Streatham in league and cup action on Saturday. And then Guildford, another defeat for the Guildford Phoenix. It looks like the Grand Slam is going to come, if it's going to come again, is going to come the very, very hard way. They lose 4-2 away on Saturday in league and cup action against the Peterborough Phantoms. The Phoenix, though, they did get a measure of revenge in some senses, but they at least got a win on Sunday. They win 2-0 at home against the Invicta Mustangs on Sunday. Haringey, however, they keep up their good form, a 9-1 win away at Oxford against the Rising Stars. Some of the travelling support apparently not behaving in the best of manners here. Hopefully we don't hear of some of the rumblings again. One thing we definitely need is a team in the capital that's going to, be noisy and be vocal. Streatham do good things. We want, and Haringey have obviously had some really, really good attendances this year. The last thing we need to hear is of any potential crowd trouble. Streatham, though, they after their 5-1 defeat to Haringey, they got back on the horse. They win 7-5 on the high road against the Basingstoke Buffalo in League and Cup action. The other game from Sunday, also in the League and Cup, and a big win for the Swindon Wildcats. They win 8-1 against the Solent Junior Devils. So the South 2 table, South 2 tables look like this. In the cup in Group A at the moment, because of course there's 7 teams in each group. Guildford, though, are still top of their cup group, though they have played 8 games to Bristol's 4. Guildford have 10 points. Bristol have 8 from 4, followed by Invicta, Peterborough, Swindon, Oxford, and Solent in Group A. In Group B at the moment, which feels slightly feels a bit more sort of lopsided in terms of some of those bigger name teams. But Streatham on top of their top of Group B of the Cup, followed by Haringey. But Haringey are 4 points behind, having played 2 games less, so they could, of course, potentially top the group and get the favourable semi-final draw, followed by Chelmsford, Cardiff, Basingstoke, Lee Valley at the bottom have only played 4 games in the Cup so far. They've scored 5 goals in those 4 and lost them all. In the actual league table itself, Haringey have got themselves back to the top of the table due to the lack of activity from the Pitbulls this weekend. They have 21 points from 13 games. Bristol, though, 20 from 11. They could very comfortably leapfrog the Huskies by winning their games in hand. Guildford are in third. They have 18 from 12, followed by Streatham, who have 18 from 11. Invicta occupy 5th spot at the moment. They have 16 from 11. Cardiff, 12 from 13. Peterborough, 12 from 10. And Chelmsford, 10 from 10 to make up the playoff spots at the moment. Oxford Rising Stars are in 9th. They also have 10 points, but they have played 4 games more than Chelmsford currently. Followed by Swindon, who have 6 from 8. Basingstoke, 4 from 10. Lee Valley and Solent, both bottom, both on 0 points. Lee Valley have played 11 games. Solent have played 10. We, of course, know that those two are going to decide the wooden spoon. That Swindon D2 game was great. I did a match night feed, only goals on Swindon supporters page. If you want to check that out in your own time. I don't know if they upload the proper game sheet. I don't know certainly the game sheet, Sigala, will get uploaded to the system that the IHA have for collating bits and pieces at the moment. Joe, of course, has seen it, as we know, as he's updated everything. But they Division 2 aren't uploading stuff to Sportal at the moment, so there's no way for me to immediately see that. I'd be interested, though, to hear who you thought stood out for you in that game. Not had a chance to see any Div 2 South so far this year. I've made it into Division 1, at least, so I've had the opportunity to go and see that. So that was fun. But yes, playoff block allocations. Of course, we've had the news that that playoff tickets for the Coventry NHL National Division Finals weekend are going to need to get that sort of sorted. Now, interestingly, there is an update on the EIHA website that I have just seen. It's here, front page, team discipline update on supplying game video. We're just going to have a look as to when this actually came out, because I want to know when they tweeted this. When did they tweet it? When did they tweet it is the interesting question here. How did I miss this in my... Well, I had my head down preparing stuff. No, they haven't tweeted it out. So this is live on the EIHA website now. Team discipline update on supplying game video. So I'll read this out to you very quickly. The NHL League Management Group have issued team penalties to 4 Division 1 teams for failing to supply game video as per the rules of competition. Chelmsford Chieftains, Invicta Dynamos, Solent Devils and Whitley Warriors have been fined for failure to supply video of their games. All teams were notified on Sunday evening. Per the NHL rules of competition, quote, teams are required to video all their games and should ensure that the footage can be provided to the relevant sections of the EIHA upon request per Rule 12.3. So that follows on from Oxford, who were fined relatively recently as well. And another raft of NIHL Division 1 teams there. That's now 4 teams from NIHL 1 South that have been fined for failure to supply game video. And shocking, really, given the fact that they provide radio commentary of their games, that Whitley, who in the past have supplied highlight packages and bits and pieces of that, have failed to supply game video to the EIHA. That is, they've become the first team in the North, obviously, to receive that. That is an interesting crackdown. You think of it, there's obviously been a lot of talk about headshots and the bans that people have been getting for headshots, but that is an unusual. The fact that this is happening this year, that like I said, that's now 5 teams that have been fined in Division 1 for a lack of videoing games and the like. That is pretty shocking to see. Especially, like I say, especially because Solent definitely have video equipment. Has it been like people not able to do it? Invicta have highlights as well. Well, Invicta's Paul, who did the Invicta highlights for a very long time, but stepped aside from doing bits and pieces for them. Oxford was also fined last week. That's 5 in 1 league, with Shamewell putting out a good argument against the fine on the EIHA Facebook. Well, I don't necessarily think that's the place that Shane Moore should be having that discussion. I think if he wants to counter the argument, I think he needs to make that to the EIHA. I also think he needs to, put a proper official statement. I mean, just looking at what Moore's written here, having been told on a number of occasions a camera would be dropped off by the EIHA to Oxford, we're still yet to receive it. We did previously have streaming in place, which has seen a number of issues and has been stopped. This was done by a very valued volunteer. We'll have a camera recording games moving forward, although this will be a single static camera and the quality is currently unknown. To record the games to professional standard, there will be a considerable investment from any club. Is it realistic to expect a small semi-professional club to foot the bill for this or be fined when they can't? I mean, the thing that sort of strikes me is that there's definitely methods to do it. And a small static camera is better than nothing there. But this is the other thing, is that these are the rules that the clubs sign up to. Like, I do have sympathy for his argument about, the fact that Oxford are not a big money operation. They are an amateur sports team. But you've got to, if you're going to have an issue signing up for the rules of competition, you need to have that discussion with the EIHA. I'm not sure commenting on their Facebook post is the best way to do that. I'd put a statement on Oxford's website and, make sure that sent it in writing to the EIHA. Like, if you want us to comply and we've told you we're going to struggle, help us either, fine us a bunch or help us, and I think that's the kind of the better way to go about that rather than sticking comments from your personal Facebook on somebody's Facebook post. Like, you can be amateur and try and act in the most professional way possible. And I like Shane Moore. He's trying to do good things with Oxford. I just don't think he's made the best decision there. What's that you've written there, Cigar? James Hounsome. Yeah, he's pretty decent. 3 goals, great hands. What's he expect from someone who played 6 games in the Elite League? I don't know. I've seen guys who've played more than 6 games in the Elite League who probably shouldn't have played that many in the Elite League. Most of them played for the Bison in their final year of the IHL. Let's just have a quick squeeze. Those are that's just the bands there. Jaden Bulkar of Chelmsford as well, given a check into the head penalty. He has a 6-game suspension into the bargain as well. Let's just see if we can get the thing for the blocks for playoff weekend, because I'm sure a few people will be grumbling about this. I haven't seen a massive amount of it. So the blocks for playoffs, the Lightning get 1 and 2 as they did last year. Raiders get 3, Leeds get 4, which is not a massive block. Telford get 5. Sheffield gets 6, which is one of the smaller ones, which makes sense because they do not traditionally bring lots of people. Bristol gets 7. Hull get 8. Basingstoke get 9 and 10, but traditionally bring one of the larger followings. Swindon get 11 and 12, and traditionally bring quite a lot of people. Bees get 13. Peterborough get 14 and 15. So a lot of people in their sort of traditional places. But I think the thing is, it's about seeing where that demand lies. And of course, Coventry hasn't been full since the start of the National Division playoffs, and bringing those teams. Bringing more fans, because I know a lot of people say, well, what about Leeds are getting these massive crowds and they're doing really well and you've given them like one small block. They haven't travelled in the past before, and we can see what's going to happen in terms of other teams that don't always necessarily travel well to Peterborough, whereas Basingstoke have traditionally brought lots of people with them. MK have traditionally brought lots of people even when they're not there. Peterborough the same, Swindon the same, and so they have to kind of act on. They can't potentially give Leeds lots of seats if they're not necessarily going to bring lots of people with them. It's a hard thing. And I think of the people like Steve Merry and Danny Purchin, who are part of the NIHL events team. Like, it's not an easy gig to do this. People are going to be upset, but also tickets are going to, tickets will, teams don't make the weekend. Tickets will become available. I'm interested to see how full it's going to be. Craig Simpson there, a free man at last. A single static camera is suitable standard for NHL 1. The NHL do not demand full broadcast standard. The camera he mentions from the IHA is for junior clubs, a portable version of the Lion system. There we go. Should Basingstoke have 2 blocks? Yes. No, MK should not get 3 blocks over the expense of everybody else. It's not fair to everybody else, Jamie. MK travel well. But it's not fair to give them 3 blocks at the expense of others. Basingstoke should 100% have 2 blocks. We have the Bison fans have traditionally travelled en masse in number to do that. I think Hull bring a good crowd for playoffs. I'm not certain on it, just because Coventry. I mean, I'm really sorry to say for Hull. Hull's awkward to get to. And getting out from Hull to anywhere else is awkward to get to. I'm interested to see how many people they do bring there, but I think Hull getting one block for the playoffs to start with, I think makes sense. Sheffield will get a smallish contingent, although they might get a little bit more given they won last year and they're doing pretty well and they're starting to get people to come along. But should Basingstoke have 2 blocks? 100% they should have 2 blocks. MK should not have 3. Nobody should have 3 blocks at the moment. It's not fair. There's 11 teams. You need to make an appropriate level of demand of seating for each team, and each team needs to be offered. I don't care that MK get 2K. They need to, there needs to be a reasonable amount kind of given. And also, the standing tickets are on sale as well. So Tuesday the 6th of December is when things go on sale. MK and general standing go on sale at 10 a.m, 2 p.m. for Leeds and the Raiders. On Wednesday the 6th, Swindon and Basingstoke both go on sale at 10 a.m. Telford and Bristol at 2. Thursday, Swindon go on sale on Thursday at 10 a.m. This is all written horribly. So Basingstoke on Wednesday at 10. Telford and Bristol at 2 on Wednesday. Thursday at 10 a.m. is Swindon. 2 p.m. is the Bees and Peterborough. Then Friday, 10 a.m. Sheffield. 2 p.m. Hull. So Hull and Basingstoke will be next to each other. So you lot better be bringing chips, boys. And as we've seen, 12 doors on Saturday for the semi-final to 1:30 and 5. Sunday the doors will open at 11 for the NHL 1 National Championship game at 12. Will we see the Solway Stretton rematch and the NHL Grand Final on Sunday the 16th of April at 4 p.m. But we sell our block out in 20 minutes and we'll sell out a third. That's not the point, Jamie. You can't give MK, so other teams shouldn't get to go the more MK fans go. Exactly. It's not fair. It's not fair to the other teams. What they should do is they should give the clubs a requisite amount of time to sell their allocation. And then maybe when they hit a point, maybe in February, all the tickets go back into the pot and have it as a free-for-all for everybody. Maybe do it that way. But I don't think MK should be given 3 blocks off their own bat. No, that's not fair to every other team, unfortunately. I can make jokes about teams not travelling and not bringing fans with them, but this is not an MK event. This is a National League event. All of the National League teams need to be represented and all of them need to be given a fair shake. Giving teams a smaller or a bigger block, depending on their average attendance and the like, and kind of what goes on, but also the amount of people they've brought before. Peterborough travel well to Coventry. Swindon travel well to Coventry. Basingstoke travel well to Coventry. MK travel well to Coventry. There is no reason why MK deserve a third block off the back of that. I'm sorry, it's just not right for me. Anyway, let's have a quick, as we've hit 9 o'clock, let's have a look at the fixtures for this upcoming weekend and see what wonderment is in store. I'm interested to see whether Joe has made the requisite amendment to Sunday. Has he done it? Oh, he's not had the opportunity to, but they did change that relatively late. But it is officially Advent. We are in towards Christmas hockey, and that means we are at Saturday, the 3rd of December. So the 5:15 p.m. on Saturday, the Raiders host Peterborough at Sapphire Ice and Leisure, one of the last league and cup games. So as we know, Peterborough with that they secure second place and a home advantage semi-final in that one. 6:30 on Saturday then. In Swindon for the Wildcats and the Hull Seahawks. Basingstoke take on Telford at the same time. 7 p.m. face-off in Bristol. The Pitbulls take on the Knights in one of their, if not their last, their penultimate League and Cup game for Leeds. 7 p.m. at the Thunderdome. The MK Lightning and the Sheffield Steel Dogs. You know that one's going to be a cracker for a repeat of the playoff final from last year. Sunday then we know as they've announced that they have moved it back an hour. The Bees will face off against Basingstoke at 4, not 5 as previously advertised. Also, if you are heading to that game, that is the Bees Air the Bear game. Please do consider taking on a teddy bear to donate to charity as required. Listed as 5:15 is the last league and cup game for Leeds. They take on Swindon. And then 5:30 p.m. face-offs in Hull. They take on Bristol. And for Peterborough, they take on the Raiders. And then a league and cup game, 6 p.m. face-off in Telford. The Tigers take on the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Face-off times. There's a lot of people shuffling things around because of the England game, and I don't blame them because people will want to watch the England game. It is what it is. So some people like football, some people don't. I'm not fussed massively by international football. I'll watch it, but I'm not going to cry about it either way. North 1 then fixtures. There's only one game on Saturday in North 1, and near top of the table clash. Solway, having lost in the Forum to Billingham, welcome the Stars to Dumfries. 7 p.m. face-off on Saturday, knowing that a win would certainly dent Billingham's chances of breaking the top two and help Solway's cause of pulling away from Whitley. 2 games then on Sunday, both face off at 5:30 currently, unless otherwise stated. Billingham host Blackburn, Solihull host Sheffield. Apologies, one game I've missed there. Widnes taking on Solway in League and Cup action. You know full well that Solway are not going to be fussed either way about the result of England playing football. We then move into South. Into South 1. Just the one game scheduled currently for Saturday, and it is a corker. 5 p.m. down in Gosport. League only action in this one. The Devils and Streatham go to battle again. Their game that I watched a couple of weeks ago was a brilliant end-to-end game. I'm sure it will be as well. If you do get an opportunity to see these two sides battle, definitely take it. A couple of games then on Sunday. 6 o'clock face-off at the Riverside. Chelmsford take on Solent. 6:15 in Oxford for the City Stars and the MK Thunder. And 6:45 on the High Road. The Streatham Redhawks take on the Romford Junior Raiders. That moves us into North 2 as they start December. Not tons of games, and in fact, only games on Saturday this weekend in North 2, but a few games on the docket. 4:45 face-off in Bradford, the Bulldogs and the Altrincham Aces. 1 League and Cup game on combined game on Saturday. For the Hull Jets, they take on the Sheffield Titans at 5:30 at the world's most versatile arena. And then the other league title challengers, the Telford Tigers, they're at home in Shropshire. 7 p.m. face-off on Saturday. They take on the Coventry NIHL Blaze. And then to South 2 for the last fixture of the NIHL for this coming weekend. A few games, of course, knocking around on Saturday, given it's so many teams. 5:15, the first face of the night on Saturday in South 2. The Invicta Mustangs take on the Peterborough Phantoms. 5:30 at the Riverside for the Chelmsford Warriors and the Haringey Huskies, as the Huskies look to maintain their recent good run of form. And then a big one at the Spectrum, the Guildford Phoenix and the Bristol Pitbulls, the old master versus what looks like it could potentially be the new masters of South 2 there. 6:45 face-off down in Cardiff Bay. The Cardiff Fire host the Basingstoke Buffalo. The Buffalo themselves then head home on Sunday. For some reason, still no confirmed face-off time for this. It's happened a lot with the Buffalo recently, but they will play against Streatham some point on Sunday. It will either be a 6 or a 6:15 face-off, one would assume. A 5 p.m. face-off. Apologies, I've jumped way too far there. Sunday, so Basingstoke versus Streatham. Sunday there, Solent versus Oxford. That is a 6 p.m. face-off. And nearly jumped into the week after. So not tons and tons of games in South this weekend. Either way, that is us done. We've covered all the fixtures in the NIHL National 1 and 2, North and South. Massive channel on Lightning Sports cover about the Swindon game next Saturday if England get to the quarterfinal as it's 7 p.m. 3:30 p.m. mooted. Also, Air the Bear, and we have Red Bull F1 cars in CMK at midday next Saturday as well. For me, I get why people are doing it because it's the World Cup and because it's England. And for me, I probably wouldn't push it back. I mean, we've seen that these early face-off times, particularly on Sundays, do work. If MK would have to put a real press blitz on to do it, I mean, they've got the money to do it because Lord knows we're pretty certain they're not maintaining the salary cap. But there's a real PR push that they could do if they wanted to do like a 3:30 or 4 p.m. face-off to get people home for 7. It's not impossible, but 3:30 would probably work. 3:30 to 6:30 gives people half an hour to dash home. You might miss the dirge of a national anthem we have and deal with it that way. But yeah, there's certainly from my perspective, I'm interested to see what Basingstoke do if England do make it. You would expect them to beat Senegal, but of course, this World Cup has provided plenty of shocks already. So we're not going to count any chins like before they're hatched on that front. But I would venture there's potentially a couple of games that do get moved. So there we go. So yeah, well, Messi's made it through at least. So I'm sure that'll keep a few people happy. Anyway, we've gone an hour and 10 minutes. So very, very quickly, last calls. We've had a lot to talk about so far. So I would very, very quickly say last call, and then we'll get out of it because we've run, like I say, run 70 minutes and the like. That can go. Sorry, just checking bits and pieces. Let's just very, very quickly check we haven't missed any news. Doesn't appear to be. And then we will let everybody go off and go tune into the rest of A View from the Bridge. No, then we will definitely call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the Basins at Bison for over a decade now. Player comings, player goings, match reports are running with a herd series that gets you the best in-depth analysis of everything relating to the Bison, as well as our hockey stories series. Great, the best I can do long form content from the weird, wonderful, and wacky world of ice hockey, mostly with a British bent, but we've gone as far back as the 19th century into the present day. Referees, players, absolutely all sorts that have been covered there. If you like your long form pieces, that's the place for you. The back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast is there as well as our tabletop ice hockey simulation game, Dice Hockey, free to download. You don't need much to play it at all. It's all there. If you do download it, you do enjoy it, though, please do consider making a donation to Parkinson's UK. That'd be appreciated. But a ton of stuff for you to read and enjoy over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like to get your news and bits and pieces through your Facebook feed, make sure to go like the Facebook page and you will get every piece from the website on there, as well as the link to this wonderful show. They're the best place to interact with me, my writing and general commentary on all things ice hockey related that focuses on the National Ice Hockey League structure is on Twitter at BannersOTW. And then, of course, now we are here on our new home on YouTube, Wednesday nights, 8 p.m, the BOTW What's Current Stream, the first and as far as we're only live show that covers all things NIHL from the very top to the very bottom of the structure, from Leeds to Lee Valley. It is here Wednesday nights. And, of course, we will tweet out the link and put the link on Facebook as well for the BOTW What's Current Stream. Another weekend done. It's December. Playoff tickets are going on sale, so don't be surprised if that's your Christmas present from somebody you know. But we're getting there, and it's breezed by for some and been a long slog for others. But it's hockey, and it's great that we get to have it every week. And so, whatever happens, be happy. And if you can't be happy, then please, whatever you do, especially around this time of year, please be safe. As my friend Scott Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. One home win. Just one, please.